Picture the ancient Greek world around 5th century BCE. One man asked a question: what if everything in existence is made of tiny, invisible particles? That man was Leucippus. Not Plato, not Aristotle, not even Democritus, though Democritus became far more famous. Leucippus is one of the most mysterious figures in all of philosophy. We know almost nothing about his life. Some ancient writers even doubted that he existed at all. But if he did exist, and most scholars seem to think that he did, then he may have been one of the most important thinkers who ever lived among the pre-Socratics. Because Leucippus helped invent one of the greatest intellectual revolutions in history: atomism. The idea that reality is composed of indivisible particles moving through empty space. And what's incredible is that his idea emerged in a world still dominated by mythology, gods, and mystical explanations of nature. Leucippus tried to explain the universe using logic alone. In doing so, he helped lay the foundation for scientific materialism itself.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell!
You first have to understand the philosophical disaster happening before him. The early Greek philosophers were obsessed with one gigantic problem: what is reality made of? There were different thinkers that had different answers. Thales said everything came from water. Anaximenes said air. Heraclitus believed reality was constant change. Parmenides argued the exact opposite, that change itself was an illusion. Parmenides argued what is cannot come from what is not. Therefore, nothing can truly change. Motion is impossible. Becoming is impossible. Reality must be eternal and unchanging. This sounds bizarre, but his logic was powerful. Then came Zeno of Elea, Parmenides' student, who created paradoxes meant to prove motion was impossible, like Achilles never being able to overtake a tortoise, or an arrow never actually moving. These paradoxes terrified Greek philosophy because they seemed logically airtight. So philosophers faced a nightmare. Our senses say motion exists. Logic says that motion is impossible. How do you solve this? This is where Leucippus enters history. We barely know anything about him. Ancient sources disagree about where he was born, who taught him, where he lived, and even whether he existed or not. He may have come from Miletus, Elea, or Abdera. He probably lived during the 5th century BCE. He may have studied under Zeno, and he was likely the teacher of Democritus. But almost all his writings are lost. Only fragments and references survive. 2 works were attributed to him: The Great World System and On Mind. And only one sentence is believed to survive directly from Leucippus himself: nothing happens at random, but everything from reason and necessity. That single line captures the essence of his worldview. The universe is not chaos. It operates according to lawful principles. No mythological whims, no divine caprice, no arbitrary miracles. Just necessity. Leucippus' solution to the problem of change was genius. He accepted part of Parmenides' argument. He agreed that true being cannot be created or destroyed. Reality must consist of internal things. But he rejected the conclusion that motion was impossible. So he proposed something different and new. Reality consists of atoms and the void. This was explosive, because Parmenides had denied the existence of nothingness. Leucippus said no, empty space must exist. Without empty space, nothing could move, nothing could separate, nothing could combine. The void became the solution to motion itself. The word atom comes from the Greek atomos, uncuttable or indivisible. Leucippus argued that atoms were eternal, indestructible, indivisible, and constantly moving. They differed in shape, arrangement, size, and position, but not in substance. Everything in the universe was ultimately made of the same basic stuff: wood, stone, fire, animals, human beings themselves. All of it was atoms colliding in the void. This was one of the earliest truly mechanistic visions of reality. No hidden spiritual essences, no mystical forms, just matter and motion. Now here comes the brilliant part. Leucippus solved the problem of change by redefining it. Nothing truly comes into existence, nothing truly vanishes. Instead, the atoms rearrange. A tree burns, the atoms reorganize. A human dies, the atoms disperse. Water evaporates, atoms shift formation. So change is real, but only as rearrangement. This allowed Leucippus to preserve Parmenides' idea of eternal being while still explaining motion and transformation. It was one of the greatest philosophical syntheses in early ancient history. Leucippus' most radical contribution is that early philosophers often invoked gods, cosmic intelligence, mystic forces, or divine harmony, but his atomism stripped the universe of purpose. The cosmos became mechanical, impersonal, governed by necessity. Worlds formed because atoms swirled together in vortices, not because Zeus planned them, not because the universe wanted something, not because nature had moral intentions. This was one of the earliest forms of philosophical naturalism, and later philosophers found it deeply unsettling.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Especially Aristotle, who rejected atomism because he believed nature had purposes and goals. One of the biggest problems in studying Leucippus is this. His student Democritus became vastly more famous, and over time their ideas blended together of sorts. So historians struggle to determine which ideas belonged to Leucippus and which were developed by Democritus. Democritus expanded atomism into a massive philosophical system, with cosmology, ethics, psychology, perception, and even mathematics. But most scholars still credit Leucippus as the original founder. Democritus may have been the great system builder, but Leucippus was likely the spark. Even the soul was material. Leucippus and Democritus believed the soul consisted of extremely fine spherical atoms. Thought itself became physical. Mind became motion. That was another enormous philosophical shift. Today, this is modern, consciousness emerging from matter, mental activity tied to physical structures, reality governed by natural laws. So, of course, ancient atomism was scientifically primitive, but philosophically, it was astonishingly ahead of its time. You might expect atomism to dominate Greek thought after this. It didn't. Because Plato and Aristotle became intellectually dominant, and both opposed atomism. Plato disliked its materialism. Aristotle rejected the void, indivisible atoms, and the mechanistic causation. For centuries, Aristotelian philosophy overshadowed atomism. Leucippus' ideas survived mainly through later atomists like Democritus, Epicurus. Without them, atomism might have vanished entirely. Then something happened. During the scientific revolution, atomism came back. Scientists began reviving ancient ideas about matter being composed of tiny particles. Eventually, things like chemistry, physics, and modern atomic theory emerged. Now, modern atoms are not the same as Leucippus atoms. Modern atoms are divisible into electrons, protons, quarks, and more. But the core intuition survived. Complex reality emerges from tiny fundamental units interacting through natural laws. Those intellectual leaps trace back to Leucippus. One of the strangest debates in philosophy is whether Leucippus was real. Some ancient thinkers attributed everything to Democritus instead. Even Epicurus supposedly doubted Leucippus existed. But most historians accept him as historical because Aristotle references him directly, Theophrastus does too, and atomism appears too developed to emerge fully formed from just Democritus alone. Still, the mystery remains. The founder of atomism is almost a ghost, a man whose ideas changed history while his life disappeared into the void. Leucippus represents one of humanity's greatest intellectual turning points. He helped move philosophy away from mythology, toward mechanism, towards rational explanation, towards natural law. He looked at the universe and asked, what if reality is built from invisible structures governed by necessity? That question became the foundation of physics itself eventually, and what makes it incredible is that he reached towards these ideas but nothing but reason. He didn't have any laboratories, there was no modern instruments that he could use, no science like we have today as we know it, just philosophical courage. And from that courage emerged one of the most influential ideas in human history, atomism.